Doug, your talk is called A Mountaineer's Story, but it's a pretty extraordinary story. Can you give us an overview of your life in the mountains?
Well, I have been quite obsessive, I guess, about mountaineering, especially in the Himalaya, although it started off on the rather low hills and crags of Derbyshire, seeing these climbers going up the Black Rocks near Cromford. What happened next was for myself and two friends from school in Nottingham to cycle out to the Black Rocks for 25 miles, and I'd got mother's clothesline around my shoulders, and luckily one of the lads had his father's car tow rope, which is much thicker, and we tended to haul ourselves up with that, much to the consternation of other climbers. We learned from other climbers how to do it, and that first trip out to the Black Rocks, 25 miles outside Nottingham on a bikes, that was just a day trip, good outing, but soon turned into sort of weekend expeditions and camping and off to other parts of Derbyshire, Wales, the Lake District, and Scotland in winter, and then the Alps and the Atlas Mountains. It just went on like that.
Was it the desire to visit new places that got you hooked on mountaineering, or was it the act of climbing the mountains itself?
Well, it had a lot to do with going to new places. I mean, it was Cicero in the first century that said, "What has always fascinated man most is the unknown." And I think all climbers know that. I think the obsession with the Himalaya was partly because the Alps has pretty much played out. All the major features have been climbed long ago. But in the Himalaya, even now, there's so much to do that's not been done before.
Does it get to the point after a while when you've climbed the biggest mountains out there and anything after that is a bit of an anticlimax?
No, not at all. I've always enjoyed coming back to Nottingham and off to the Derbyshire crags. And since 1982, I've lived up here in the Lake District, and certainly I always enjoy going up Blencathra any day of the week, and the local hills just near our house, Carrot Fell and High Pike. I think part of it is just the exercise to get out there and push yourself a bit.
You've been in some pretty sticky situations in your mountaineering career. At one point, you actually broke both legs during the descent of a mountain, which I'm sure you'll talk about in detail in your talk. Nowadays, equipment is better, techniques must be more advanced, but I understand people still occasionally lose their lives on mountains. Do you think it's just as dangerous as it's ever been?
The improvement in techniques, in training, and especially in equipment, just allow you to go that little bit higher, faster, on more technical ground, and keeping the level of risk and commitment more or less the same. So, yes, I guess it's not going to change that much. There'll always be fatalities in the mountains. There was about a good dozen of our friends that didn't make it. For survivors, I took Braithwaite, Chris Boynton, and others here. That's a great sadness when we look back. I mean, the mountains are a dangerous place.
Now, you have started a charity, Community Action Nepal. Tell us about its work.
Well, it started small in the early 90s when the guys who'd been helping me climb their mountains in Nepal asked me to help them improve conditions of labour in the trekking and climbing industry. They were getting ripped off, mainly by indigenous tour operators. So in about 1990, we got our lads sorted out into community action treks with the idea of making sure the porters got a good deal, got a good remuneration, got good clothing and footwear for the job, shelter at night, and reasonable food and everything. And so consequently, they worked harder for us, and we built up a good kind of community spirit there. And it's been estimated that 17% of the British public will put their money to a company that does look after its providers in that sort of way. And that's a lot of people out of 65 million. So we've always had lots of people going with us for that reason. So it does make sense financially to do this. And we started Community Action Nepal. Now we are responsible for about a dozen health posts, rural health posts, and 49 salaries. We do have to raise here in Cumbria about £250,000 every year to keep it all going.
Tell us what different topics you'll be covering in your talk at the Quarterhouse.
Well, I'll be covering early days on Gritstone, then going off rock climbing in the Dolomites, Yosemite, California. That's the rock climbing. Then on with the expeditioning from early days in Chad on the Tibesti Mountains, of course Everest Southwest Face, and of course I mentioned the Ogre when Chris Bonington and myself managed to make the first ascent of this 24,000-foot very rocky mountain in the north of Pakistan, and then had a lot of problems getting off, and I managed to break both legs on the first abseil, and then Chris smashed his ribs 4 days later, still on the descent of the actual rocky part. It took 8 days to get down to the glacier, so I shall talk about that.